If you look in the direction that way behind you, you're going to see a taller and narrower archway than the one through which we've just passed. That's the Sally Port or Royal Entrance, beyond which is a small drawbridge leading out to the Queen's Stairs and directly onto the River Thames. So rather than using the narrow and packed streets of London that were a bit smelly, royalty and nobility would travel along the river in their impressive barges, tie up alongside those stairs, and with little difficulty then gain entry into the tower. Those gates are original and they're over 700 years old. And it was at those gates that King Henry VIII so lovingly greeted his second wife, Queen Anne Boleyn. So the story goes, as she walked through those gates, he fell to his knees when he saw her beauty. And he said to her, "I will love you for the rest of your life." As we know, poor Anne though, she was fated to return just 3 years later for a very different reason through a very different gate. Traitor's Gate around the corner. We will be heading there next, but not before I've told you about the bell tower. So named because? The bell, absolutely. We're really original with our names here at the tower. It contains the oldest surviving alarm and curfew bell in the City of London, but that's not really why it's important. It is the strongest of the 13 towers on that inner ballium. It stands on a base of masonry, 30 feet deep, 20 feet below ground and 10 feet above. The walls down here are 11 feet thick, tapering up to 8 feet thick at the top. And inside of here, of course, are 2 circular prison cells. They're not connected by a set of stairs, and they're only accessed through separate doors on separate floors of the King's House, the other side. So, of course, some pretty high-profile prisoners have been held inside of here over the years. One of the most infamous is Sir Thomas More. He was held in the lower chamber for refusing to accept that King Henry VIII was the head of the Church of England. At the same time, John Fisher, the Bishop of Rochester, was held in the upper room. Now, during their time in here, both of these men suffered terribly, but neither could ever be convinced to give up their beliefs. Finally, in 1535, they were both taken out up onto Tower Hill for their public executions. 400 years later, in 1935, both of these men were then canonised as saints in the Roman Catholic faith. Now, another famous prisoner that was held in this upper room, also known as the Strong Room, was young Princess Elizabeth Tudor, later Queen Elizabeth I. But at the time, her half-sister, Queen Mary Tudor, had reason to believe she was implicated in the Sir Thomas Wyatt Rebellion, which against the Queen's plans to marry Philip of Spain. Fortunately, she was proven to be innocent, but for a time banished to Woodstock. She did return though 4 years later to prepare for her own coronation for her long reign of nearly 45 years. Okay, so I've got one more person to tell you about, and he's the most famous of them all. And that is James Scott, the Duke of Monmouth. Have you heard about him? No, most people haven't, don't worry. Okay, he is the eldest son of a king, King Charles II to be precise. He has 13 children, but none of them with his wife. So they are all illegitimate. So when King Charles II dies, succession has passed to his brother James, who is Catholic. And at the time, that wasn't a popular choice. So therefore, James Scott, being the eldest son and a Protestant, was persuaded to stake his claim to the throne, and he landed in the west country of England, marched inland, gathering popular Protestant support along the way in what is now known as the Monmouth Rebellion. There was a small battle at the Battle of Sedgemoor on the 6th of July, 1685, but the Duke's army was quickly overthrown, and the Duke hid in a ditch for a week. When he was found, though, he was brought back to us here at the Tower, and he spent just 3 days inside of here before he was taken out up onto Tower Hill. But this is where it all went wrong, because his execution is the real reason why he is the most famous, because it goes down in history as one of the most bloodiest and botched executions that ever took place. Now, are you sure you want to hear about this?
Yes!
Again, very enthusiastic. Okay, So, on the day of the executioner was a gentleman, and I use that term very loosely because I don't think really he was a gentleman. But his name was Jack Ketch, and he was only a part-time executioner. He was also a part-time butcher, but a full-time alcoholic. On the day of the execution, he is very nervous because he knows he's executing a popular and quite handsome young gentleman. And he knows that he is really going to have to do a good job. So he has one too many rums that morning. I say one, maybe 4 or 5 too many. And he can't even see straight, let alone hold an axe. He hits James Scott 5 times with the axe. None of them even sever the head. So he turns to what he then knows best, and he pulls out a large serrated butcher's carving knife to finish the job. I'm afraid though that is not where the gruesome story even ends. So we then bring back the head and the body here to us at the tower. We sew them back together, and 24 hours later we then bury him in the chapel. And he's buried at the altar because of course he is still the eldest son of a king. So why did we bring both the head and the body back? Why did we sew them together? And what happened in those 24 hours? Well, we realised we had no portraits of the eldest son of a king. The penny's dropped for a few, hasn't it? And I think you're going to be right. We commissioned an artist to come into the Tower of London and paint the Duke. Allegedly, it was the stillest sitting the artist had ever had. If you Google a picture of the Duke of Monmouth as well, there is just one. It hangs in the National Portrait Gallery here in London, and he's got quite a large white frilly scarf tied around his neck. He's also got quite a waxy, distant glazed look on his face, and now you know why.
Did he smile?
Did he smile? He's painted with a bit of a sort of a grimace, to be honest. Have a look, Google it and have a look. So on that note, ladies and gentlemen, shall we be heading round the corner? It's all in the delivery, isn't it? Right, let's go round.